Dear students, welcome you all on the behalf of Rahul Anand Balaji Tutorials. So, as you know that I am Rahul Anand and this is somewhat around my channel whose name is actually the Rahul Anand Balaji Tutorials. So now, let's begin with the very interesting topics which are often being asked in terms of your Neet, of in the Aiims, of in the All India Pre-Medical Examination. So today, here we are going to study about the case of the biomolecules. Remember, so in these we will be understanding about the here meant of the cellulose, which is actually the carbohydrate. So talking about these things means in terms of your cellulose. So cellulose is the most important carbohydrate. Often your cellulose is the structural material of the higher plants. As well as when we are talking about the case of the cellulose. So cellulose is what? So the particular cellulose is the straight chain of the polysaccharide, in which what will be happening? So cellulose is the straight chain of the polysaccharide in which your particularly glucose units will be existing. Now, so here particularly for remembering it, we are often having the very unique formula. So these are what? So these are the CMC, SGC as well as the MFC. So now let's elaborate these. So we have deal about these things, means what are actually the C, means the carbohydrate. Then the M, CSM. Then what? CSM S. So particularly here we have often dealt about the S. So CSM S. Then we are having the G. So talking about here means what are actually the enrollment of your G. So in this case of the cellulose we will be having what? So in this case of the cellulose we will be having the glucose, rather the two glucose units. So these glucose units are particularly being attached to one another by the help of the glycosidic linkage, rather the glycosidic bond. So when we are talking about the case in the case of the cellulose, so this means particularly the glycosidic bond which is literally existing. So this will be actually present in terms of your C1 of one glucose unit and the C4 of another glucose unit. So just we have enrolled the formula, means the CMS, CSMS, then the GC, then what? Then the MFC. So talking about this case means in terms of the cellulose, so it is what? So it is the polysaccharide, or either here meant of the cellulose is the polymer polysaccharide, of course, whose monomer unit will be what? So cellulose is actually the polymer polysaccharide whose monomer unit is actually your monosaccharide. So here we have literally deal with the CSM as GC. Then what? Then the M. Now let's elaborate with reference to the second features in it. So when we are talking about the cellulose, so cellulose is what? So cellulose is actually the straight chain of the, tell me, the polysaccharide. So cellulose is the straight chain of the polysaccharide. Often these are rigid in nature. Often when we are talking about the presence of your here meant of the cellulose, so this will be actually present in terms of your algae, often in the case of the fungi as well as in the case of the higher plants. So talking about means what are actually the algae, remember. So we have particularly studied about the structural demonstration as well as its component as well as the type. Talking about these components, so these are being literally divided in terms of the three broad categories. So these are the chlorophyta, then the phaeophyta as well as the rhizodophyta. Talking about these things means what are actually the chlorophyta. So this will be showing its presence in the chlorophyll pigment, or either in those nature where the green pigments are literally being enrolled. Talking about the here meant of the rhizodophyta. So these are quite a bit resemblance in terms of the red in nature, as well as the phaeophyta. So these are often popularly known as the blue-green algae. So understood? Means when we are talking about the cellulose, so cellulose is the here meant of the particularly rigid, often. So cellulose is particularly the rigid, as well as these are particularly the here meant of the polysaccharide, as well as when we are talking about the another case, so it will be literally present in terms of the cell wall of the algae, often the fungi, as well as in terms of the another cases of the higher plants. So you are very clear about that, means what are actually the fungi. So we'll be literally understanding about these. So in this case you are often having the hyphae as well as the mycelium. So what are actually these things? So these are actually the part as well as the components of your fungi. We'll be enrolling as well as understanding about that later. Talking about these things means what are actually the next step when we are particularly understanding about what? When we are particularly understanding means these cellulose result in the formation of what components, or either the what things. So these cellulose are playing important role to form what? To actually form your cotton fibers. Now, so when we are particularly understanding the bit introduction in term of the structural resemblance in terms of your cellulose, So in this case, we'll be having the here meant of the beta D glucose, which are particularly being attached by the help of what? So these are being attached by the help of the beta glycosidic bond. So you could find here on the board here. So it is the beta D glucose attached by the help of the beta glycosidic bond. So this is somewhat the condition when we are talking about the case, means what are actually the cellulose. So understood. So what are actually the cellulose? So cellulose is the important carbohydrate. Talking about the next step in terms of your cellulose. So cellulose is the structural material of your higher plants. Talking about the third case in terms of your cellulose. So we have just enrolled that. So cellulose is actually the straight chain of the polysaccharide. Talking about what are actually the polysaccharide. So those which are particularly giving the 2 units of the monosaccharide or either the simpler sugar coming under what case? So these are known as the polysaccharide. After that we have often deal about the bit introduction. So in this case what will be happening? So in this case of the particularly cellulose, we will be having the glucose units which are literally attached to one another by the help of the glycosidic bond, as well as these glycosidic bond are particularly being linked with reference to the C1 of one glucose unit and the C4 of another glucose unit. Why is it so? This is due to because we have often understood that there is the particular linkage, rather the concentric here in terms of the margins are literally being shown in terms of these things. Often we have deal about the another components such as what are actually the general formula to remember it. So these are what? So these are the CSM, SGC, then what? So CSM, SGC, then the MFC particularly. So here we have enrolled about the CSM, then the SGC, then we are having the M. So talking about these things, so your cellulose are actually the polysaccharide, whose monomer unit is the monosaccharide. So CSF, SGC, M, then we are having the FC, or either the here made of the CSF, SGC, then the MFC, of course. So when we are talking about these things in terms of your cellulose, so these cellulose are actually what? So these cellulose are the rigid in nature. Often these are polysaccharide. Often their presence are literally being targeted with reference to the cell wall of the here made of the higher plant, often the algae, then the fungi, as well as the in last we have understood means what are actually the particular properties means playing important role in terms of your here in terms of your cellulose playing important role for making the cotton fiber. Often we have understood means what are actually the structural resemblance within term of your molecular formula in it. So in this case we will be having what? So in this case we will be having the beta D glucose attached to one another by the help of the beta glycosidic bond. So you could often particularly write this. So if you like the word with reference to the education as well as the lectures as well as the videos, so you could particularly subscribe, then like, then comment below in the text. Thus I'll be knowing that what concept actually you are hungry for or what haven't you understood or either got. So very thank you with reference to what? With reference to the Rahul and biology tutorials. Very thank you.